Welcome back, listeners, to another fascinating episode of Arts and Crimes.
Set the bar high from the very beginning.
From the start, baby.
If you say it, you put it out there in the universe, it becomes true.
It happens.
Or you make a fool of yourself.
Oh, man.
This is like an exact microcosm of our two attitudes. Brennan's like, and if you believe, and I'm like, you will hit a brick wall with your face.
It's like April and Andy in Parks and Rec.
And I'm April.
Andy. All right. It's okay.
Well,
I can be Andy.
And Aubrey Plaza?
Yeah. Is it
Which
Aubrey
is it?
Plaza?
Anyway.
Dang
Mrs.
it. Last
Miss
week
Plaza?
we insulted Steve, and now we're on to Audrey.
Aubrey.
Lippity quick.
This really is just a stealth celebrity gossip podcast.
You gotta really filter through, but it's there.
Yeah.
What also is there is these three people. I'm your host, Kelly.
I'm Brandon.
And I'm your guest host, Josh.
Also, I listened to, not by choice, my
Someone tied you down. Turn on your own pod.
So my fourth period class today, I came in and they were like, "Boyles, turn on the pod. That's what we want." And so I asked them what episode they wanted to listen to, and they requested the first episode because we've kind of been skipping around. So we listened to the first episode, which was, our first. So we were kind of explaining the pod, and Josh is like, first time, I don't even remember your joke. You're like, long time listener, first time hoster or something. And I was like, we were so young and naive.
Where they're like, where's the best part of the pod? Brandon.
Where's Brandon? Yeah, he wasn't in that episode. I also sounded so nervous the entire time.
Yeah, I am really intimidating.
You are.
Being in my presence.
Yeah, it is.
Often
It's true.
makes people behave like that. It's true.
Growing up with you as a brother was just...
It was rough.
Yeah.
I'm sure.
Yeah. You're like the Cosimo of the family.
Was that the one that looked like a chameleon? Which one is Cosimo?
They all were unattractive except for one.
The one brilliant one that
who
got murdered.
Yeah, fizzled out so early in life.
He got murdered?
Yeah, he got stabbed in the church.
I know, but I didn't put together that the only attractive guy, they were like, get him out of here.
Yeah, that's what happened to him, unfortunately. So, but Cosimo was the one that did everything. Well, he was the one that really got it.
He started it all, right?
Got the ball rolling. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yeah.
He did banking stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a lot of political.
Oh, yeah, machinations.
Yeah, that's the right word.
Machiavellian, one might say.
Mm-hmm. That came later, probably.
Yeah, we brought that up.
Yeah. And I might mention it again very briefly.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it.
I could tell. You sound incredibly excited now.
Yeah.
Really bringing up the energy.
I can't wait to start talking about that fox that gets tamed.
Quick, how do you say Machiavellian French? What is it? Le Petit Prince?
Yeah, you nailed it.
How do you say prince in French?
Prince.
Prince? I did almost nail that.
Yeah, you did really well.
That was pretty close.
All right, so I wanted to tell you guys about my week.
Yeah, you did. So
I didn't know how to start it.
So many listeners, many listeners have written in asking for us to do a little check-in at the beginning of the episode.
No, they've written in comments saying, but how was their week? And we finally are given the answers.
You can blame it on me if you want. Yeah.
This is Brandon's idea.
So
what have you done since the last pod?
Are we starting with me?
Yeah, I'm starting with you since you're the instigator.
Because something happened in the last 2 weeks that you really want to brag about.
Yeah.
No, not necessarily.
You're like, I ran a marathon. I got a gold medal. It was a really good 2 weeks for me.
I saved an orphanage.
We had our fourth child, but nothing really that I'm proud of. Nothing special.
It was really kind of a,
it was the low of the week. It's a
real Cosimo.
Yeah.
So, no.
You didn't actually have a child.
We named it Medicae.
Chevelle came out with a new single, which is quite good. Chevelle
I haven't heard it.
Always
Yeah, you're a big
Like,
Chevelle fan.
Yeah, I think they are, like, you talk about Breaking Benjamin being consistent and solid and Chevelle.
They're always reliable.
Chevelle is, for me, is
You're
that.
reliable.
You're like, man, their last album that came out, I don't know, a year or two ago, that was all like Mars. No, so that's the album that came out in 2021.
Yeah.
And it's all themed about like 70s sci-fi traveling to Mars. This is the new one, Rabbit Hole. and it's quite good. And then the Bluestones released a new album, and I got to listen to that today while I was at work. And it's pretty solid. I like the Bluestones quite a bit. So.
I don't know what type of music are the Bluestones.
Yeah, I don't know either.
They're kind of so I lump them with like the Black Keys or the Black.
I don't know them either.
Oh my gosh!
You can't just do Color Noun.
I thought
you can't lump them
That's
according
all
to
his
the
bands
construction of their name.
Color Noun is a good way. Like, there's a lot of Color Noun bands that are totally great. Black Pistols.
Sabbath.
Well, so Black Sabbath is different genre though.
It's the Color Noun genre. Black Sabbath is exactly like Black Keys.
All right, Bluestones. I don't know. They're like so
Green Day. Sorry, keep going.
They're exactly like Green Day.
No.
The offense in your voice.
Green Day. I realize that Green Day is Color Noun, but Green Day fits more with the word number.
Yes. Blink-182.
Some 41.
The Strokes,
right.
11. These bands are not cool. The Sums. Do you remember that music video?
I don't.
It's a Sum 41 music video where they're meeting with an executive, and the executive is like,
"Oh yeah,
Green Day 13, Blink-182. These bands are not cool anymore. What's cool now is the Ives, the White Stripes, the Sums."
I have seen that. I think that's in their like big hit, right?
Still waiting.
Still waiting.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
Anyway, I apologize for just being like...
You're good.
Let's reminisce about a music video from
Bluestones.
20 years ago.
Yeah, I don't know what... I need to just Google freaking what genre they are.
I'm looking them up right now. The Bluestones
Yeah.
have a new album called Metro. Ooh, that's a fun-looking album color. All right, if we
Is it blue?
No.
So
I feel like
It looks very Cyberpunk 2077.
yeah, it does.
Which I'm a fan of.
This album sort of went in a different direction a little bit. Like, it's got like in between songs, it's got like a lady on a PA system sort of sound, like someone speaking in the metro or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just it's good rock. It's sort of like almost hipster, I think, maybe. I don't know. Can we just like...
is it like... what's the band that has Dave Grohl on the drums?
Queens of the Stone Age.
It's kind of like that, like a throwback rock type of...
Maybe, but...
All right, we're just going to listen to
I
the
was like,
song.
Foo Fighters? But that's not it.
I don't know if this is a good representation of their stuff. Here.
Give me that.
Oh, here you go. Yeah, this is a great song.
This is a Foo Fighters song.
It's not.
It's called One by One.
You're probably going to have to cut this. I don't know how much music you can...
Is that Ed Sheeran on vocals?
That's what it sounds like.
He's so offended right now.
Very Ed Sheeran.
Man. No.
Play an Ed Sheeran song.
Oh my gosh.
It would be hilarious if we looked it up and it was like Ed Sheeran's side project. The Bluestones.
It's like how the Tool's lead singer is Pucifer's lead singer.
Pucifer is also in The Perfect Circle.
Yeah.
My goodness.
We don't want to ruin it for you.
Our Canadian blues rock duo. Okay. So
Blues rock duo. Okay, cool,
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah,
Tight.
blues rock, that makes sense.
Oh my gosh, they're a duo?
Yeah.
You're like, who's the other
Just
guy?
like
Man, I
The
love
White
so many
Stripes.
duos.
Wait,
The Black
that's
Keys.
Color Noun.
The Black Keys are a duo, and Royal Blood is a duo. I love Royal Blood.
Royal is a type of blue, and blood is a noun.
I love color noun bands.
Yeah, that are duos.
Yeah,
specifically.
Blues rock.
To narrow that down.
All color noun bands are duos. We didn't know this, but
yeah.
You know what? Blues rock, that absolutely is
Your
totally
jam?
in my wheelhouse. Yeah. I do love
love
blues
blues. I haven't ever listened to much blues rock, honestly.
Oh man, you should give the Blue Stones
Dip your toes
and the
in
Black
the water.
Pistols and the Black Keys a real good listen.
All right.
I'm surprised you don't know the Black Keys.
What's their
I
best
thought they
album?
were way more popular. These are both really good.
All right. I'm going to download this one.
I listened to the new Sleep Token single,
Nice.
which I liked. It's called Caramel, or I think Caramel.
Oh,
Caramel?
which way?
I think they say it caramel in the song.
Oh, nice.
I think, which I know you like better.
Yeah, I'm sorry for you. I know caramel.
The thing
so
is
fancy.
at times I say caramel and at times I say caramel. I think it depends on the use of the word.
I say caramel.
Of course
That
you do.
makes sense. Yes. But I was like, oh, this is a lovely Sleep Token song. I was like, but I feel like there's something, I don't know. And then it got to like the last 2 minutes and all of a sudden they're like, and then it gets beautiful again. And I was like, there's my Sleep Token. So I'll have to play
They're
that
great.
for my students. Yeah. So it was and they had another one that was a single release previously. And I talked to you about the album art because it was like a really like emerald green with like gold and it had like flowers and an axe. And I was like, what is going on? Like, this art is so vastly different from the previous album's art. And then you see the album art for this song, and it has like an ivory background with gold, and it has flowers, but it has like morning glories. And I don't mean the flower morning glory. I mean like isn't that the weapon, the morning glory?
Oh.
Like a mace?
Or a morning glory?
It's like a mace? Like thing?
Isn't that some kind of
Yeah.
intimate
Freaking
activity?
I'm a nerd.
Quick, look up Morning Glory on Urban Dictionary.
No, look up Morning Glory weapon.
Is it like a morning star kind of a thing?
But it's I think it's kind of mace-ish.
It's great job, Kelly. Did you learn that from
Great job, Kelly.
from like
From your art master's degree.
Highlander? What's the William Wallace movie?
The
Braveheart.
Highlander?
I don't think I can say I like Highlander better than
Braveheart.
Braveheart. But
Highlander.
but I watched it.
I don't think I've seen it, but I know there can only be one.
Here's what I'm going to talk about, because you guys both talked about music, and I want to contrast how terrible I am with you guys.
Oh, great.
So we were on a big long road trip, and I was driving home. We were driving from Oregon, but from like central southern Oregon, so it was, a long drive. And I was like, Michaela and I are in the front, and I was like, hey, have you ever listened to this album? And I put on the Drowning Pool, their first album.
Oh, nice.
Which is just like Drowning Pool, especially that album is like peak new metal to me. Like, it is less well known than like Limp Bizkit, but it's that style 100%, right?
Yeah.
Not really rapping though. I like their vocalist a lot. He died.
Oh.
They've gone through a few.
Yeah.
Is it like the cursed position at Hogwarts?
Basically.
I don't
Defense
think,
against the dark arts.
I don't think they all died, but
Just the first one
a
died.
lot of them are only for like one album.
Oh.
Yeah. But the first one was fantastic. And the album is way fun. But I feel like I have no culture when I listen to it. And so I was like, Michaela, let's listen to this music while the kids are watching a movie or whatever. And we listened to the first Drowning Pool album.
Amazing. What did she think of it?
She was like, "Oh yeah, that was pretty good."
Oh yeah, that's
she was.
Rave reviews.
She was not enthusiastic in her praise, but she was like, "It was all right."
Like an unenthusiastic 5 stars.
at work. Every morning we do a huddle check-in, and when the supervisor for the core is reporting out and he's got full staff, he'll say, "I've got a body in every core," And in my head, I'm always like, bodies every core, got a body every core.
Body every. You can't see it, but we were both flopping around like Muppets right now.
I just love it. In my head, I'm having a great time.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what arts and crimes are we talking about tonight?
Yeah. Excellent segue. Excellent. Okay, back to I'm
Totes
now professional.
Yeah.
I am not unprofessional.
All right. Yeah.
All right, here we go.
Excellent segue, sir. Into the art and the crime. Go.
Ready? Here we go. We are going to talk about the Renaissance, and we actually get to meet our hero, Caravaggio, in this episode.
Your hero.
It will, however, I actually don't even know if hero is the right word, but he did things, for sure.
Oh.
And he looked really good in a leather jacket.
Probably. I don't know if he had a leather jacket.
He was the bad boy of art. He had to have a leather jacket.
You're right. You're probably right. Yeah, so it will definitely be a 3-parter, though. So
What if he had a dopey voice?
I would be so disappointed.
Yeah.
I imagine it like low and sultry.
Of course you do. Everyone
Obviously.
does.
So, anyways. All right. So the first thing I did look up how to say Renaissance in a bunch of different languages.
Ooh.
So
You did your homework.
I did my homework. So to start off, in Italian, it said Rinascimento.
Okay.
So close.
Does that translate to rebirth?
Same rebirth, same thing.
Wait, for what language was that?
Italian.
Okay.
And then for Spanish, I feel silly that I didn't put this together, but it's just Renacimiento, which is just rebirth.
Oh, okay.
In Spanish.
More closer to the Italian pronunciation.
Mm-hmm. And then I did also look up Josh's Portuguese,
Precious Portuguese.
which I think you can say it better than I can.
Renascimento, probably.
Yep, that's exactly it. But I also specifically looked up Korean because you asked for Korean. And it's Renaissance.
Renaissance.
They went with the French.
Yeah, and I looked up Japanese, which was Renaissance.
What about
Main ones. I just
Tagalog.
didn't. So I did look up Tagalog, but if it didn't have a pronunciation guide, I didn't do it.
okay?
So there's
Russian?
quite a few obscure ones. Russian I did, and it's Renaissance.
Swedish.
Swedish.
Renaissance.
So I
Birdie.
I looked it up and it was just Renaissance. But I wanted to tell you guys my favorite one. Because I said it so many times to try and say it right, and it has like this sing-songy way. It's Thai, and it's Yokfun Fu Siliapa Witiya.
Dang.
And it took me so long to get to say it. So it was just so fun.
Do you have what that translates to?
I like it translated to Renaissance.
Well, like
I
a
was just
direct
like,
translation.
It's just
Oh.
so much.
Message it to me.
The thing? Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay. From Thai to English, that means Renaissance, or more literally, Age of Revival of Arts and Sciences.
Oh, I like that.
According to Claude, so it could be completely wrong.
Is Claude an AI or something?
Yeah, Claude's an AI.
I feel like that makes sense, though. Because it is a mouthful. All right. The Renaissance. Are you guys ready?
So ready?
So ready for the Renaissance. I'm going to skip some of what I had because it's superfluous and we're already
We've
here.
already filled our quota.
Of superfluous. All right, so just really quick, I wanted to cover the basics of early, high, and late Renaissance. But there's a couple of things that I think people maybe didn't realize that I think is interesting and important to know because it comes up with Caravaggio. We already talked about how like wealth and religion sort of directed a lot of the art subject matter and what was being painted and what was being built because they're the ones with the money and they're the ones making the purchases and the commissions. So it's not a lot of art that's like artists going, oh, I really like this and I think this is interesting. I'm going to experiment with it and I'm going to do this thing. I mean, obviously they were doing experimenting and stuff, but they had to have commissions in order to be making art and making money. So a lot of their famous stuff is coming from these commissions, not like subject matter they were like
Right.
jazzed about.
Well, isn't that kind of a common theme? Like we've seen it in a lot of the people you talk about, usually where when they got to pay bills,
You
They
gotta make
a certain
art.
style of art
Yeah.
that sells, and then they go back to what they want to
Yeah,
do.
exactly. That's the same with the Renaissance. Generally artists worked in workshops, and so there was like a master artist, and then there was artists working under them. And so a lot of the most famous art pieces that we know, like by Leonardo and blah blah blah, all these people, a lot of these master works were not painted solely by that master. So oftentimes that person is, putting together the composition and the design and is working on the like difficult parts, but they'll have other people painting like background parts, prepping the paint, doing other like less detailed or less complex aspects of the art, which I just think is like an interesting thing that maybe people don't realize.
I definitely didn't realize that. Is that specific to this time, or is this a practice that's been around?
It's a practice that's been around for a long time. Like master apprentice thing where the apprentices are doing the less complex, less intricate stuff, and then the master puts their name on it when it's done.
Are there any stories of like an apprentice trying to sneak in stuff like their own name or things like this to like make a name for themselves?
Not that I'm aware of. Usually when they're ready to make a name for themselves, they leave and go do their own art. And that's like when they finally get a patron of their own.
Okay. I wasn't sure if this was like maybe like a Disney animator sort of situation and they sneak in a penis.
Oh, yeah. No, probably not. I mean, I'll have to look it up. But
I'll look it up.
I'm not sure. Caravaggio worked as an apprentice for a while, but
to whom?
I'll tell you in a little bit.
Oh, dang. Good question.
That is a good question.
I'm
But
so professional.
And well said. He said whom.
instead of who, yeah, because he's smart.
Yeah.
And
So professional.
totes profesh. But he didn't really do the whole master apprentice people underneath him, but part of that is his lifestyle, which again we'll get to after.
That sounds salacious somehow. Okay, I want to ask you something about this.
Yes.
So it is funny that we have artists. So basically, like, some master is making a giant canvas and he'll like draw it out and then be like, hey, you paint in the sun yellow and then I'll come in after and do some detail, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of how it works.
Yeah. Or he'll go in and like fix stuff.
Yeah. But like a lot of the modern era, what they're trying to do is take that sort of thing and replace it with AI, right? So where they would be like, oh, you could have an AI that, like, this is in every kind of thing. In programming, writing, all kinds of work, they're trying to take the tedious work and remove it and allow somebody to focus on the important parts.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that as an artist?
So for me, it doesn't bother me, honestly, because I think, so I have a fine arts degree. So the concept of like having other people working on works is not insane to me. And the fact that artists are always using like reference photos, or they're using live models, or they're like, that we've always had to use other stuff to help kind of bolster what we can do. Like we have an idea and we like take all these resources and have that help us, right? The technology that is that quote unquote help changes throughout time. So for me, it doesn't bother me because art has and always will adapt to whatever comes next. It's just like human creativity. The only time it's stifled is when we're not allowed to use it.
Yeah.
So, I think as long as humans are allowed to be creative, then we will figure out a way to continue to do so. So
I don't know. I have a pretty big concern about it, which is that doing that basic stuff is how they learn the craft, right? Whether it is a programmer who's programming some stupid function that like adds two numbers together, or an artist who's painting the sun yellow.
yeah.
Like, if those opportunities are taken away, how do we get new programmers and artists?
Yeah. Oh, I guess for me, the way I was thinking of it is like, yeah, they can absolutely use AI, But if they aren't doing those things, if they aren't building those fundamentals and practicing, they're going to be a crap artist and they're not going to do well. So they'll weed themselves out.
If you're really passionate about it, if you really want this to be your thing, you're going to put in the work. You're not going to take the shortcuts.
Yeah, in college and like from other famous artists and designers and stuff, they're always saying there's like a catchy way to say it. It's like hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. So it doesn't really matter if you're talented if you're putting the work in, and if you're talented and being lazy, you're still going to get overshadowed by the people that are working hard. So if you're even if you're naturally talented and you use AI as a crutch, eventually you'll get overshadowed and overtaken because you can't keep up.
Interesting.
And I liked that because I don't think I'm naturally very talented.
Oh my gosh.
And I went to college for art, and you just see so many other people that are so much better, and then you're like immersed with all of these like amazing masters throughout the years, right? And then you see what you're doing and you're like, I'm terrible at everything.
Okay. So for context for all the listeners, I know a lot of you actually know Kelly and know that was just a whole bunch of not true things that she just said. But for those of you who don't know Kelly, she is her biggest critic and super talented, and probably whatever you do, she does better.
That's very kind of you. Not true, but very kind. But really it is encouraging because I love art and I want it to be part of my life for my life, right? And so I teach art at school because I love learning it, and I think that makes me excited to teach it because I'm always having opportunities to help other people learn, but I also get to learn as well while I'm doing it. And then, I obviously am working with art and stuff outside of my classroom. And so I work really, really hard to make it something that's part of my daily life. And I know quite a few of the people that I went to college with that were very, very talented. And they're not they're accountants and bankers, which is all fine. Like they're, doing other stuff and being successful in whatever it is, but they're not doing art. Mm-hmm. And I think if you had seen some of our work side by side, you could objectively look at it and be like, this person has more raw talent.
What is that? If any of these people are going to be an accountant, which one?
Which one? But who's going to be this immersed in art person? I'd probably be somewhere in the middle.
Well, I agree with you, Kelly. I don't see AI crushing our progress. Mm-hmm. I think what it does do is make it so that people like me who have no talent in drawing and painting and things like that, mm-hmm. I still get to sit down with the AI every once in a while and recreate the creation of Adam with humanoid shark figures.
That was pretty good. But I do think that you have, I do think it is something where it's tempting to not have to do the work to try and make AI do it. Mm-hmm. But I think what Josh said is correct. If they're not doing those fundamentals, it will ultimately be their own downfall. Yeah. So yes, super good question.
Thank you. I'm very professional.
Yeah, you're very professional. That's the word of the day. Okay, so
I'm reading the news. I'm sitting here with a newspaper.
Such a professional businessman.
Yeah, stock market is
stalking
the Dow Jones Composite Index.
Yep, it's true. Okay, so as I always say, circling back.
Yeah.
To sum up, the Renaissance is very difficult because it was hugely impactful, but there also was different Renaissance experiences depending on where you were geographically on the globe. But it's all globally tied together for us in this, title called Renaissance. So scholars have generally separated it into early, high, and late. And I'm going to give you the sum up of...
Why not early, middle, and late?
Because the high Renaissance is the time where it was really in the peak of the Renaissance. They were achieving exactly what they really wanted to do. Where the early stuff was leading into what they ended up perfecting during the High Renaissance. And then the Late Renaissance was a sort of a reaction to the Renaissance and to what was happening environmentally.
I feel like that I would be offended if I were an early Renaissance person, and I worked so hard to like revolutionize the world of painting, and they were like, "Oh yeah, those were the sucky ones. The ones that came after the revolution were the good ones."
Once
Those
again, you've got your negative attitude because you're setting the foundation. They're standing so high. The High Renaissance is only high because they got there on the shoulders of those that came before.
You two are great to have together.
Which is why they should give a better name than early Renaissance. Foundational Renaissance.
There we go. That's
right.
what we'll call it.
The Foundational Renaissance, the High Renaissance.
All right.
And then
then-
bored of what they're doing, let's change it up.
I'm going to go to the library, and every book about the Renaissance, I'll be like,
White out.
foundational.
There you go. Well, during the foundational or early Renaissance. So that one started around 1350, 1400s. 1400s is just like a really nice round number, so that's generally what we say. This portion of the Renaissance is around 100 years. It's a little less, unless you count 1350. Then it's a little more. It ends around, I kept finding the date, 1494, which is super specific to me. But 1494 to 1500 is...
1494?
Yes.
What happened?
That's what I mean.
That ended it.
I was like,
This is the early Renaissance?
This is the early Renaissance.
The foundational.
Okay.
Renaissance.
Foundational Renaissance.
Like, I don't want to show how dumb I am, but I thought the Renaissance was over before Columbus
Sailed the ocean blue.
yeah. I thought it was way older than it is, apparently.
Here's a way to put it in perspective. Here are some names that were included in the Renaissance. So, like
I don't
early
know.
Erasmus, you know that name?
No.
He's a scholar from Holland.
So, I know that you just said it's
Erasmus.
going to help put in perspective, and maybe it will the listeners, but you're going to name some names, and I'm like, I have no idea when these dates were.
Okay.
What about Diogenes?
Oh my gosh, that guy, 400 negative, maybe?
57. Okay, so Erasmus, he's like 1466-ish,
Okay.
1536.
Yeah,
So-
inventor of the hula hoop. We're very familiar.
Yeah, he translated the New Testament into Greek.
I
Okay.
don't think so. That doesn't sound right to me.
From Hebrew into Greek?
It says that
Wouldn't
he's
like
a
some Greek
Holland.
guy have done that?
He was a Holland humanist scholar.
Wouldn't he have translated it into hollandaise then?
He made a delicious sauce
Sauce
out of the Bible.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe, but this is what the internet told me.
Oh my goodness.
You can't trust the internet. Listen.
Okay, here. How about this one? Descartes, who said, "I think, therefore I am."
Uh-huh.
He's during the Renaissance.
Isn't it? How do you say
Really?
that in French?
Descartes.
Descartes.
That's how it is. I wasn't sure. So Descartes,
Wait, did you
19
say Descartes or Descartes?
Descartes.
Is it
Descartes.
N-T-E-S?
Tes
I
Descartes.
guess you'd probably say the T. Descartes.
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 Descartes. Who said,
Descartes, huh?
I
It wouldn't
think
be Descartes.
he said, "I think, therefore I am." That was
Okay,
during
I remember that guy.
yeah
He invented
Galileo,
Plato. Galilei.
and we know who
He
he is.
invented the solar system.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
Copernicus.
Also
Okay.
invented the solar system.
You are blowing my mind right now
These are-
because, like,
These are Renaissance guys.
Descartes for me seems more recent, and Galileo and Copernicus are like ancient philosophers in my mind, like Aristotle and Copernicus, best friends.
Yeah. Nope.
They
There's,
hated each other.
well before them was Chaucer.
I don't know Chaucer.
Geoffrey
He-
Chaucer, writer of the Canterbury Tale.
Correct. Yeah.
I got one right.
Nice work.
Suck it.
Dante.
Anyone that doesn't know about
He did
Dante
the
from
Divine
Devil's
Comedy.
Make-
the
Devil May
Inferno.
Cry.
Yeah. Devil May Cry.
Inferno.
Dante.
Dante's Inferno. Okay, sure.
No,
The
it's called-
Divine
Dante
Comedy.
didn't call it Dante's Inferno. It was just the Inferno. No, I'm
Oh.
just kidding. I think it was.
So wait.
He did the
Okay,
Divine Comedy.
So he wrote that during the Renaissance.
It was So it was technically right before the Renaissance, but
Right. He made some kind of
So he's like
Apricot
early,
He's
yeah.
like foundational.
foundational.
Yes.
There was Machiavelli.
Hey, I love
obviously.
that guy.
You
Tyndale,
would.
William Tyndale. He also
What? Is he like
translated the
Invented
Bible.
aluminum foil.
He translated the Bible into English.
Oh.
Yeah.
A lot of people making names for themselves translating
Translating
the
the
Bible.
Bible.
All the different languages. Has anyone translated the Bible into Klingon yet?
Not yet.
That's
You can
how
do
I'm
it. You can
gonna
make
make
your
my
name. And then William Shakespeare. Oh, Bill Shakespeare. They're all during early
Renaissance.
to late Renaissance. Renaissance.
Some of those guys were not in Italy.
Correct. And the
Oh.
Renaissance also did not happen only in Italy. It happened all over the place. Like Italy, there was like the Italian Renaissance, and then there was like the European era and that kind of stuff.
Italy is part of Europe.
I know, but there was
I
like
just want to clarify a few things here.
there's
Number
like
one,
different sections.
Europe
Yeah.
includes Italy. In the Venn diagram, if you made a Venn diagram
Of
of Europe shaped like Europe and Italy
It's like
is
the
shaped like a
Northern
little
Renaissance
boot,
is what it's called.
it would be entirely inside the European part of the
So
Venn diagram.
does Italy consider itself something different?
Well, the part of the reason why it's different is because they had different accesses to different materials. So an example is the Italian people. They didn't have access to oil paints as early as people in Northern Europe did.
They're called Italianos.
Yes.
Well,
So they did a lot of like fresco paintings, and the paint itself is much lighter. It is not nearly as like vibrant. It has much more pastel colors to it because you just cannot achieve that dark pigmentation without the overlaying that happens with oil paints. So in the early Renaissance, most of the Italian paintings and painters were doing frescoes, where in like the Northern Europe they were doing oil paintings. And like one of the most famous like oil painting guys from the early Renaissance is Jan van Eyck. Have you guys heard that name at all?
I don't think
Van
so.
Eyck?
Van Eyck, I mean, maybe.
So
Sounds like a
he's,
vampire.
if you ever take any art classes, he's like, you're gonna talk about Van Eyck.
This is our art class.
Yeah, okay.
And here we are
Here
talking,
we are
about,
talking about
Van Eyck.
Van Eyck.
You said it and it happened.
Yeah, so Van Eyck did a really famous painting called
Arnolfini portrait.
yeah, it's the Arnolfini portrait. So I have it up for you, gentlemen. Would you like to describe a little bit of what you see?
All right. It looks like a bedroom with a rich tapestry of fabrics.
Tapestries.
Right? I mean, we are talking a lot of fabric on these people. Can't really see much about them because there's so many folds and stuff. He's very dark colors. She's in this vibrant green, probably full of arsenic, and she's dying as the painting was done. And then they got this little Toto dog in the front.
The woman is clearly pregnant. Okay, so yes, Toto from the famous song "We Let the Rains in Africa" is in the bottom of the portrait. There are some very pointy shoes
Yeah.
in the portrait.
Bottom left-hand side.
There's a chandelier, a mirror in the back, and if you look really close, you can see a tiny demon who is cursing all of the onlookers. Oh, and they've got vinyl lettering upon the wall that says "Live, Laugh, Love" in Italian.
You're so close. But you guys did notice quite a few details. So here's some things that they started doing in the Renaissance that was different, right? So beforehand, it was like figurative. There wasn't any like realism. So they really wanted to try and go for realism, and they wanted to try to have realism in the figures and in the background. And they were discovering things like perspective, which was a new thing that they were rediscovering from the Greeks and Romans and stuff. So Van Eyck just crammed this thing full of symbolism because they also wanted to like fill the space a little bit while also trying to achieve realism with the figures and with the background.
I hate this.
This painting?
No, I hate that somebody can be like, I'm going to do a new painting style. It's called painting exactly what I see in real life. And everyone's like, that's a genius thing. And why didn't I think of that? Like, everything must have been so easy back in the day to invent some new thing when nobody had invented anything. And you were like, what if we just painted what's there? And everyone was like,
what?
You mean like with perspective and shadows? Like in the real world? And you're like, yeah, I know it's crazy, but stick with me, guys. I'm going to do it.
What's really funny, it is kind of odd because, like, they're discovering techniques, and I'm like, this is first grade stuff, SpongeBob. Like, just, I can't believe that they don't know. They're like, we started using chiaroscuro, which is just a method of using lights and darks to create 3D form in your thing. Which I was like, that's what, I mean, I teach my students that. I don't call it chiaroscuro, I call it light logic, but it's the same thing, right? So it is bizarre because we're like, it's all quite obvious, but this was like, you know, groundbreaking. I think what's hard is all of the symbolism that is in here and what it means. And here's why it like makes me a little insane. So in that oil painting, it is like just jam-packed of symbolism. So back in the day, marriage was not something that was like, you got to have a priest there, you got to have people sign things, it's a legal thing, la la la. They're like, did you promise? Sounds good. And that's kind of like, you hope you keep to the promise often. And so a lot of like wealthy people would pay to have, you know, like a marriage portrait or something that like is proof of their marriage and their fidelity and their promise to each other. So a lot of people are saying that this is a marriage portrait. This was one of the ways that they tried to just cram it full of symbolism to show their fidelity and stuff. So if you notice in there's a single burning candle in the chandelier, and that's supposed to represent their unity with each other and with God or the Holy Ghost. The dog is supposed to be seen as a symbol of fidelity. I don't know why, but dogs were supposed to do that. So that little...
They're so loyal.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. There you go.
I mean, maybe.
Obvious. It's right in front of my face. In the mirror, you can see the couple, but there's also the reflection of a third person.
Yeah.
The guy with the camera.
Yeah, obviously. Yeah. So, and they do say that it's supposed to be some sort of like servant or witness. But they also say it's most likely Van Eyck is putting himself in
ghost.
the portrait or a ghost.
Right.
Also,
I mean, he would be the witness to this
to the
moment.
thing. But they say that he's in there possibly to show that there is a witness to this promise that they made. And then above the mirror, the fancy live, laugh, love that you found actually says in Latin, Jan van Eyck was here 1434.
He also invented so-and-so was here.
Yeah, he's the first one.
He was the real groundbreaking graffiti artist.
Yeah.
Again, in the past, it was so easy
to be the first one to do stuff because nobody was doing stuff.
Yeah.
And there's cherries outside the window, which are supposed to represent love. The woman's dress is supposed to symbolize wealth because not only was it a lush green, but what she's actually doing is she's holding up folds and folds of it in front of her. But like actually, what she's doing is like holding. It appears that she's holding a bunch of fabric up.
Over her pregnant belly.
Yeah, over her stomach because it shows how wealthy they are because she could have so much extra fabric.
She has an insane amount of fabric that's even still on the ground.
Mm-hmm.
I love the idea that they were like, we need to show off how wealthy we are. Put a whole bunch of extra fabric on there.
Yeah.
Don't make a nice, well-cut, sparkly dress.
Nope.
Just layer on as much fabric as you can afford.
Because we can buy it all. And that's not the only thing they did that they put on there to show their wealth. So you said it's a bedroom because there's a bed in there, but that's actually the living room. And it was common practice for wealthy people in this time period to have a bed in the living room. A bed was one of the most expensive pieces of furniture that you could purchase.
And they were like, just stack up some beds, show them what we got.
But it's really what it is. So they put it in the living room because they're like, look at this really fancy bed we have. And then they'd fill it with like blankets and pillows and stuff because they're like, we can afford a bed and we can afford all this bedding.
Oh my gosh, I would hate the Renaissance.
Yeah, you really would.
I want less pillows on my bed.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you're wealthy. Look at all the pillows you've got.
Okay, so humanity really never changes at all. There was no time in the past where we were like, the simple peasant life, where everybody was kind and generous with each other. But it was really people walking around like high schoolers going, look at all this friggin' fabric I've got, you suckers. Come to my house and check out my bed.
That's what my high schoolers say. They're like, look at all this freaking fabric I've got. That's why they've got the big pants now.
Yeah.
Pants back.
Yeah, the Jinko jeans.
The 90s
are from the Renaissance. This lady in Van Eyck's.
She's actually wearing Jinko jeans.
She's wearing Jinkos if she pulled up all that extra fabric. You would see giant pockets that go down to her knee.
Yes, exactly. So, that's why the bed was in the living room. But on the...
What if they didn't have a bed in their bedroom? Like
They just have
they
can
have
only
the
afford
one.
one bed. They
Yeah.
put it out in the living room to
Like-
make it look like they have.
Would someone come out and be like, I don't actually think you're that wealthy. Show me your bedroom. I want to see for myself.
That's why we started having to give the tour of the house when you move into a new house. Yeah.
Okay.
Be like, see, there's 2 beds, not just the one in the living room.
Was a double-decker bed more expensive and more cool?
I don't know if they invented
They
that.
invented
the bunk bed
beds.
came from this period of time.
Yeah.
Look at it. It's a bed on top of a bed.
So, but the flip side of that coin, to the symbolism of that, is people have also listed every single one of those for a completely different thing. Like, they also say that the single lit candle represents the fact that he's alive and she passed away, and her like pregnant features represent that she passed away in childbirth. And they say that the dog doesn't represent loyalty, but instead represents how back in this time they used to have sculptures of dogs on like grave sites
It's
for
the Grimm.
women.
They were big Harry Potter fans.
They were, yeah. But also it was supposed to guard and guide them in the afterlife.
So this reminds me of the Medici's crest, where they were like, there's 5 dots on it. They
Could mean this.
this thing or this other thing.
Yeah.
Like
Nobody was taking notes.
Yeah.
So this kind of stuff, you have opened up this
Pandora's
hole that I hate
box.
falling into, where they're like, "Here's the symbolism. It's so symbolic," and then somebody comes
Someone else
along
goes.
and says, "Well, like it actually could mean these things or whatever," and then I'm over here thinking like, "What if there was just a freaking dog in the room?
Yeah.
Like what
Yeah.
if he just painted this crap?" And there wasn't. He's just like, look how lifelike it is. Done. And then people come along later and they're like, oh, there was only one candle. It
Yeah.
means this. I'm like,
Yeah.
what it means is they didn't. The housekeeper only lit one candle or whatever.
Because they're expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like, if you look behind her, above her hand only is a grotesque, which is a architectural feature.
It's like a gargoyle, but it doesn't spout water.
Yes.
Wow.
Kelly taught me that earlier this week.
We were playing Dark Souls and
Elden Ring.
Elden Ring, sorry. We were playing Elden Ring, and I always stop Brandon and make him look at the architecture and the sculptures and stuff. We're like, finished killing a big boss, and I'm like, but did you see these sculptures? And he'll very dutifully come back and look at them in the game. And I was pointing out that the creators just absolutely love Gothic art because all of their arches are pointed everywhere, and they have flying buttresses on everything and all this other stuff that's very Gothic.
Yeah.
And I was explaining that on cathedrals, a lot of times people mistakenly call grotesques gargoyles, but gargoyles are functional, and like spout water and that kind of stuff, but grotesques are sculptural. And so most of the time what you're seeing is a grotesque and not actually.
Okay. So, to all our listeners, if you ever have a friend who calls something a gargoyle, tell them they're a fool and it's really a grotesque, and they'll really like you.
Yeah, everybody loves it when you do that.
Okay, so here, let's all make our own interpretation for this painting.
Yes, I want to hear what you guys say.
Here's my interpretation. The man on the left is a tailor. He is making a dress for this woman, and he has not yet hemmed it. And there's a dog because he has a dog. And there's one candle because there's a window right there, and it blew the other candles out. And his hand is up because he's going, yo, hello, hi, I'm a tailor man.
All right. So
I'm
in
just
my
a tailor
interpretation,
boy.
so these two were being maybe a little bit too frisky, and the father just walked in, and they like quickly threw on, like, he's wearing her robe on accident. She's like throwing on the curtains onto her. And the guy, he's got his hand up. He's like, "Whoa, no, nothing happened." And she's just like, "My tummy feels bad." And there you go.
Excellent. Yeah, so you cracked the code.
That's the symbolism Van Eyck was going for.
I don't think there's anything else we have to talk about the early Renaissance / foundational Renaissance for.
Yes, okay, good. And that's the end of this episode. It was just one episode about the foundational.
So
because we've been going for an hour and a half.
This is a fun episode. Like, we're chatting and having a lot of laughs, but
We got to get through it.
Are we on like the first page still?
No, we're halfway through.
Oh, good job.
Yeah, actually more than halfway through, technically. And I did even less for the next two sections. So Van Eyck was a bit of a aside for me because I just love it. Not the painting in particular, but okay. So that is sort of like the early Renaissance. They're like figuring these things out. They're starting with like single point perspective. And so then we get to the high Renaissance, and this is where the artists are perfecting and expanding on what was sort of started by this humanist idea. So artists started commonly employing realistic proportions, started doing foreshortening, sfumato.
What's that?
So foreshortening or sfumato or both?
Sfumato.
Sfumato. Josh!
Sfumato?
Sfumato.
Smoofato.
No, sfumato.
What's the name of the guy from Zoolander?
Derek?
Zoolander?
No.
Derek
the bad guy.
Zoolander. Mugato?
Mugato.
Yeah, you're super close. So Josh, if you remember, we actually talked about sfumato in the first episode.
I don't remember.
Okay, well, so for the listeners, in case they don't know, foreshortening is like when you have a view, like an extreme angle. So like when your hand is out, and so the hand is really big, and then the arm looks really small in comparison. So it looks odd angles. Like Goku does it in every episode of Dragon Ball Z, kind of thing. And then sfumato is where you're blurring and softening. Sfumato.
Sfumato.
Mugato.
S-F-U-M-A-T-O. Sfumato.
Mugato.
Oh, sfumato.
Now you got it. So sfumato is that like blurring and softening of the lines that gives it this really realistic look. And it was something that Leonardo da Vinci was just the master of. And that's one of the few or many reasons that the Mona Lisa is such a beloved and amazing painting, because it sort of embodies what they were going for in the Renaissance, which was, they're including this realism in both the person, the human, and the background. They're trying to go for things that are like this idealistic beauty.
When you say that, what does that mean?
Like, so everything...
Who's ideal?
Like, everything is in proportion mathematically, and everything is balanced in that. So I think it's less about, like, beautiful, like, she's got luscious lips and big eyes and whatever, but it's about how, like, mathematically and scientifically, this is the perfect proportions for a human to have and have displayed, and then it's, like, beautifully rendered. Everything's in balance and harmony and has this sort of, like, idealistic look to it. So the Mona Lisa, she's beautiful, and some would say that. Some would say. I don't really like the painting very much, and I saw it in person in the Louvre. So yeah.
So I've also seen the Mona Lisa, but I think after you.
You guys are just humble bragging like crazy around here.
So the only reason that I'm bringing it up is that they've actually changed it.
Oh, have they?
Yeah, so now
the Mona Lisa is a dude.
Yeah.
The Doodle Lisa.
No, but they've got it
It's
like an
called
amusement
the
park.
Mona Larry.
It's like an amusement park.
I'm gonna just keep going. You're trying to tell this story, and I'm like,
can I say this?
Go ahead.
All right.
He's gonna wait.
It's like an amusement ride, and it's got. So they got a
Who's that one artist? The graffiti artist? They let him come in and
Oh.
spray paint a mustache on her.
Who is that guy?
Banksy?
Banksy, yeah. Now the Mona Lisa is a Banksy. It's no longer Da Vinci.
That would be nuts.
Da Vinci X Banksy is how they say it with children.
So it's like
Anyway.
a line that you kind of sneak
Yeah.
around.
So you get in a line
Just-
and they give you 30 seconds in front of the Mona Lisa.
Really?
Yeah. They've got like their security guard right there. He's very pushy, getting you through.
It was
the
probably
line.
my fault
Yeah.
that happened, and they were like, "We got to figure something else out."
Yeah.
But I didn't enjoy it. But like the Fibonacci sequence, you know what I'm saying
Mm-hmm.
when I say that? The golden ratio is created from it.
Maybe.
So
Yes.
it's like that spiral.
Inventor of
That's,
Silly Putty.
Oh, like the seashell.
yeah. It's
no,
the spiral.
it's 1 + 2 = 3. 2 + 3 = 5. 3 + 5 = 8.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, but mathematically,
Oh yes.
yes, it creates a
I
spiral.
use numbers.
It creates that seashell spiral, which happens in nature all the time.
Yeah.
And so that's why it was so revered. It's why it's called the golden spiral and is revered in art. And so she fits that Fibonacci sequence perfectly. So she's fulfilling all of those ideals that they were looking to create.
Guess who hasn't seen the Mona Lisa?
Your mom.
I'll give you a hint.
I'm right.
Me. But if I had, I would have been disappointed.
I'm sure that you would.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I
I like
also
that you
like
patted
that-
his back just now. Like,
I
yeah.
like that you included that the guard is pushy because he has to be.
Well, yeah, he
That
has
has to be the worst job in the
Oh,
world
man.
Yeah.
for people that have dreamed about something their whole life. And all day you have to see these people who are seeing the most famous thing in the world and go, "You've spent enough time looking at her.
30
Move along.
seconds, go."
Move along. Go. Go."
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's got to be.
They need to just replace it with like a moving conveyor belt
Of
so
Mona
that
Lisa?
a guy doesn't need to be there.
Yeah. You just stand on it and moves you past it.
Yeah.
I just had I had other pieces that I've seen that were so much less famous, like Albrecht Dürer and Katsushika Hokusai. I saw their prints like in person, not behind any kind of glass. I got to go back
You
behind.
licked him.
No, you couldn't. Don't. Oh my gosh.
What if you really want to know what it tastes like, though?
No. Oh my gosh, no.
It would be
You
delicious.
can't. Yeah, you can't even like take photos or anything. You can only.
So, for our listeners, when I said that she licked it, she went white as a sheet, and then she vomited
I did.
at the mere thought of.
Yeah, of the idea of it. But
Yeah.
I did cry. I like literally tears to my eyes. It was so beautiful to see because I love those artists and just was like so moved by getting to see work that was actually done by them in their time period. Like how powerful is that? And I had like such an emotional moment with them. But when I saw the Mona Lisa, I was like, I am like a burger. I don't know.
You
just
know
like-
who hasn't seen a Hokusai?
Neither of us.
This guy, Josh Boyles.
Well, you're gonna have to come with me one of these times to an art museum.
You can't let me because I'll lick it. You know what would happen if you brought me
I can't
in.
bring you.
I would be joking about it. I'd be like, look at, what's okay? And then I slip and go, "Wah," and like smear all of the ink or whatever.
Anyways, I think like art is just so wonderful and so powerful. And you don't even have to lick it to make it be powerful.
True.
It's not, yeah. So yeah, the high Renaissance, they were kind of perfecting these techniques. They were getting more realistic. They were implementing what's called trompe-l'oeil. It's basically creating the illusion of highly realistic 3D space and objects in 2D works. So it helped the artists better incorporate architectural elements in their works.
So it's Loi.
L'oeil,
That
trompe-l'oeil.
means eye.
It's like it means to like fool your
Trompe-l'oeil.
eye.
Yeah. It's
Deceive the eye.
That literally is how it translates.
Oh, perfect.
Trompe-l'oeil.
They're trying to fool
your eye.
Fool your eye into believing it's a 3D piece. Which again doesn't seem like a new idea, but it was. And the top three, can you guess who the top three artists of the High Renaissance, or kind of the whole Renaissance, but the High Renaissance are? The
You mean
big
the
three?
mid-Renaissance?
The big three. It sounds like it should be Leonardo da Vinci, Michelangelo, and then I don't know.
One of the other Ninja Turtles.
Yeah. Donatello? No, of course
Raphael.
not. It's not
Raphael.
Raphael?
Uh-huh.
Really?
Yeah.
I didn't.
He's one of the top 3.
Top 3.
Yep.
Good job, Ralph.
Atta boy. Raph.
In Portuguese, they pronounce Rafael, and so the short version is Rafa, and I really like that.
I
as a
actually do
short
too.
version of a name.
Like a month ago, you asked us to have our favorite artists picked out.
I've got mine.
Who is it?
No, go ahead. You
Oh,
go
I
first.
was going to say, like, I wanted Raphael to be my favorite because he's the best Ninja Turtle.
He is.
And he was, like, had a bad boy, you know, like, persona or whatever. But I was, like, looking at his art and I was like, you cannot be my favorite.
You know what's a fun fact about Raphael and Michelangelo?
His art actually sucks.
He's not. So they knew each other. Raphael was much younger, and he died very young
Oh, sorry.
from syphilis.
You can say it. His descendants aren't going to sue you for defamation.
Great.
He died of syphilis.
Because he was a party boy, and Michelangelo hated him.
Really?
Yeah, they did not get along. Which is, I mean, the turtles don't get along all the time either.
It's true, but it sounds like they're switched a little bit. Raphael had the Michelangelo persona
Yeah.
of the Turtles.
So,
This works perfectly. I understand it all now.
yeah.
Hold
so,
on. So do you think Michelangelo, when he died of syphilis, was like, booyah?
That's what you get.
I mean, he probably wasn't sad about it.
believe
But
he said
who was your favorite,
cowabunga.
Josh?
Okay, I don't even know if this is Bernini. Is he a...
Oh
I-
man,
Renaissance.
I wanted to have Bernini be my favorite too.
He's actually a Baroque artist.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
He doesn't count.
He doesn't.
But his
He's close. He's so good.
David is my all-time favorite sculpture.
Yeah.
I would take it over Michelangelo's David 1,000 times.
Oh my gosh! You know who's my least favorite David?
There was
Is it Donatello's?
Oh yeah, Donatello's
Donatello's.
David.
Donatello's
What is
David
his deal?
is awful.
What I dislike is that he's naked except for the stupidest hat. like why would you do? He's like, listen, I'm not going in with any armor except I gotta cover the top of my head. It's my weakest area.
Well, I mean, I guess that makes sense because that's exactly how he killed Goliath, right? Was forehead shot. So he's like, it's the most deadly thing.
He's protecting against himself. He's
Yeah.
like, all soldiers die by a rock, to,
rock
the
to the
head.
head.
If I wear a helmet, I'll be invincible.
Yeah, he's cracked the code. Yeah, I really don't like it. And like Donatello was in the early Renaissance, so I feel like he doesn't really fit with the other turtles, but it's fine.
Yeah.
Anyways, so
Well, I'm bummed that Bernini is a Baroque artist.
yeah, but
He missed
he's
the cut.
so good.
He's yeah.
I just
Excellent.
Oh my gosh, Bernini. Anyways, so that's sort of like what the High Renaissance was. Is all that?
Can we stay on this tangent for just a little bit longer?
Sure.
So my favorite, I decided, was Leonardo, which is, I feel a little bit like a cop-out saying that, but it's because I have always really liked Madonna of the Rocks.
Mm-hmm.
And while I was doing my research trying to figure out my favorite artists,
Mm-hmm.
like I knew that I liked Madonna of the Rocks, and I looked it up. I like Googled Madonna of the Rocks,
Mm-hmm.
and it came up with Virgin of the Rocks. And I don't like that painting. And I was like, do I not actually like this? Why did I like Madonna of the Rocks? And why did I call it Madonna of the Rocks? It's Virgin of the Rocks. But they're two different paintings, both by Leonardo. Why?
That's
did
not
that
an
happen?
uncommon thing. Like they will get subject matter in multiple. Like they don't have prints of things, so they'll do like different versions of different subject matter of the same subject matter multiple times. It's not uncommon for that to happen.
Well, I like Madonna of the Rocks, but when Virgin of the Rocks came up, I was like, I don't think Leonardo's my favorite. He can't be my favorite and have done this. But
Yeah.
he did do Madonna of the Rocks, and I
Yeah.
do really like that painting.
Yeah.
So, there you go.
I'm going to agree with you that Da Vinci's the best one because Aesop Rock loves him and mentioned him heavily in one of my favorite songs called Pigeonometry.
I do love that song,
Yeah,
but he also has a song about Van Gogh, doesn't he?
he does.
He
and
has-
it's a really good one.
He's a very artistic
Yeah.
artist. Okay, so yeah, that's the High Renaissance. So we're getting to the Late Renaissance, and this is where it kind of influences more of what's going on with Caravaggio. Because this is the time frame that Caravaggio is the late Renaissance.
Right, okay.
So this is the tail end of the Renaissance. It's like mid 1500s. So in 1527, Rome was taken over by King Charles V, and Italy was plundered and lost a lot of its wealth. There was Spanish, French, and German invaders kind of battling all over the Italian territories. And if you recall, this is around the time of the downfall of the Medicis as well.
Okay.
So there's a lot of like upheaval in a lot of ways in Italy and everywhere. This, in response to the Protestant Reformation, because also remember that like Martin Luther didn't like that that they were doing like all of the indulgences and all that kind of stuff, and so there was like the Protestant Reformation, and so in response to that, the church had a counter Reformation where they heavily censored artists and writers. And so it became like a natural response of the artists were that they were afraid to be too bold with their works, to be too expressive, because during this time, it wasn't just religious stuff. We sort of got off track, but in the early Renaissance, you start seeing not just religious paintings, but they started using a lot of like references to like mythology and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. And all of that was included, like the birth of Venus and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
So that started to lessen because they were afraid of the repercussions from the church. And then in 1545, the Council of Trent established the Roman Inquisition. And this made any views that challenged the Catholic Church an act of heresy and punishable by death. This included the humanist ideologies that the Renaissance was sort of founded on. So all of this sort of led to the decline during the 1500s to 1600s.
Can I ask,
Uh-huh.
What about the humanistic views to the church not like? Is it that was the church's view that men were fallen and that they shouldn't be celebrated, or like what's the problem with?
Yeah, I think it was along that line because the humanist view was that like men, the experience of humans and men and their existence should be celebrated and should be promoted, and we're kind of like the center of our own universe, right? Where the Catholic Church at the time was saying like, no, like we're supposed to be like poor and humble and we're nothing and we're dirt and we're less than anything. And the fact that you're like claiming to be this like center of your own universe and trying to celebrate your own victories is like you're kind of snubbing your nose at what God has done for you kind of idea.
I think there's kind of also the opposite interpretation around scientific things, like Copernicus was the heliocentric model, right? Mm-hmm. During that, and like the reason the Catholic Church hated that and Galileo's work is because it took man from being the center of creation and God's pinnacle, and instead said, "Oh no, he's just a dude on a rock amongst a bunch of other rocks," right?
Oh,
it made them
yeah.
non-special.
Yeah.
So like, it's funny that it can be interpreted both ways. That like,
which I think they did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're right. Which I sort of viewed it, like in my brain, I view it the way that I explained it, but that's absolutely right too, what you said.
I think maybe the correlating fact in both of those views is that both of those ideas, the idea that man should be celebrated or the idea that man is just a guy on a rock swinging around a sun, it takes the power away from the church. Yeah. Like when they get to tell you that you're dirt, but that this is the center of the universe and we are the gatekeepers for that center of the universe, like those, that just keeps power in the church.
Which is what it was all about, really, is about power and control.
I really thought it was about funny hats.
I wish.
Donatello was just trying to push that propaganda, but it's not the funny hat.
Nope. So all of this sort of led to the decline of the Renaissance. And the art at this time also took it had its own name. It took such a different look from what they had been doing. So it was called Mannerism art. Like the style was called Mannerism. And it sort of had these elongated figures, sort of artificial, not like realistic poses. There's one from Michelangelo.
Michelangelo's The Last Judgment of Christ?
Yes. That is a really good example because all of a sudden it's not very realistic forms. There are more artificial poses, and the focus is less on classical ideas, but more on emotional expression. So it's about the emotion of it. It's another really good example. It's El Greco's The Holy Trinity, where I think that really shows the elongated figures. The people's limbs just don't look right, and the colors are kind of like oddly clashing. Like they're not nearly as soft and harmonious.
It feels like they're really just protesting. They're like, oh, you don't like our art? We'll just give you crappy art from now on.
Like that's kind of what kind of what it feels like a little bit. So that was sort of the climate that Caravaggio is getting into. And I know that you have been waiting for this moment.
Oh man.
For so long. Finally, we get to meet our hero, Michelangelo.
Huh?
Caravaggio's actual name is Michelangelo Medici.
Okay.
So
wait, Medici?
Medici. I actually covered, it's very short, so don't get too excited, but he's in this short span, he does some really exciting stuff. So, Michelangelo Medici. So he was born September 29th, 1571 in Milan. Some say that he was born in Caravaggio because Caravaggio is a location.
Okay. I was like, some kind of meta craziness is going on here.
So some say he was born
into the Caravaggio. While other Caravaggios merely adopted it.
Molded by it. But his father, Fermo Medici, was an artisan, most likely a stonemason. So he came from fairly humble beginnings. There is some debate on what his father did. There's some that were saying that Caravaggio started out by mixing glue, and that's what he did. But oddly enough, a lot of the biography information we have about Caravaggio comes from police reports and biographies written by people that hated him. So there's a lot of you have to be careful.
I love that someone would hate someone so much that they would write a biography about him just to trash him. I don't have that much hatred about basically anyone.
Anybody.
If I hate somebody, I just let them disappear into history. Writing about them makes it more likely people will remember
He
them.
was like, he was a gluer guy. That's what he was capable of. There was some heavy-handed insults getting thrown during...
About glue specifically?
Well, I mean, that one. But that's very unlikely because Caravaggio was 5 when his father died. There's also reports that he was just simply a well-to-do artisan. And there's accounts that his father was a major domo and architect to the powerful Francisco Sforza, the Marquess of Caravaggio, but that also is not true. His family moved to Caravaggio in 1756 when he was a small boy to escape the plague, because there's a plague going on at that time. Unfortunately, his father died the very next year because of it, and his grandmother and grandfather and uncle, all on his father's side, they all died from the plague. So then he was left with his mother there, which is his mother was Lucia Aratori, and she was actually the one that had the prominent connections. So his father really was just a stonemason. His mother had connections with Sforzas, which they say that his father had that connection, but it was actually his mother. And she, so on his mother's side, she was related to a prominent land surveyor that personally worked for Sforza. This feels so tenuous, the connections, but they were connections that he maintained and saved him multiple times throughout his life, which is the only reason I'm taking time to tell you about these tedious connections. He worked for Sforza, and that's where that connection came in. Additionally, his Aunt Margarita was a wet nurse to the children of the Sforzas, and his wife Constanza Colonna. And it's the Colonna family that is, again, their prominent family that he kept a connection with. He also kept a connection with his aunt because very shortly after his father died, his mother also died, which orphaned him. But his aunt, he had a relationship his whole life, during his whole life. And she's actually the only person that did not request any kind of payment or any artwork from him. Like, she genuinely just came in and helped him out multiple times because she thought of him. They think that she thought of him as maybe her own son, because she had him when he was. She took care of him since he was so young. But then it was about 1584, at age 12, he took up an apprenticeship. And this is where you get to find out who he apprenticed under. He was under the master painter Simon Pederzano, he was a minor painter. He was actually not super important, but he made some artworks. And he did a lot of fresco work.
It's my favorite soda.
Yeah. And here's where we kind of start to see the type of person that Caravaggio is. So he never learned any of the fresco techniques that his master had been trying to teach him during his 4-year apprenticeship. But during that time, he became an excellent swordsman and duelist. And he also was already getting in trouble with the law. And this is he was 12 to 16 during this time. But he was also very talented. So during this time, he had some possible major influences that we see throughout his painting career. One of them, they say, might be this firebrand Counter-Reformation archbishop by the name of Charles Borromeo. He was particularly heavy-handed about his religious teachings, and was very against a lot of the Renaissance ideals, and preferred a more visceral, natural work. He didn't like the way that the Renaissance art was looking, and Caravaggio was in the area and very influenced by him.
What does it mean for the works of art to be more visceral?
So I think he wanted it to be more raw, more based on the emotions, simple, basic. Anyways, he also likely visited Venice. And one of the major influences that he had was he went and saw Titian, the Martyrdom of St. Lawrence. So it had a dramatic focus on human suffering, and he used tenebrism. And what tenebrism is it's utilizing lights and darks in a really extreme way to emphasize a subject matter.
So it sounds like a French term.
Mm-hmm. It is
for shadow.
Yeah.
Ténèbres.
Yeah, that's where it comes from. And so
what you're saying is Caravaggio is basically just an emo kid.
You're understanding why I like him so much. And I just want to clarify, because we did talk about chiaroscuro and how that is using lights and darks to create 3D objects, where the difference with tenebrism is that is on steroids.
Yeah, turned up to the max.
Yeah.
I would say this is a striking piece.
Yes, it is. I like it. And this is partially why I like Caravaggio so much, because he is considered the master of tenebrism. So next time when I show you a slideshow, you'll see, we'll start seeing how he utilizes that to make just the most dramatic, impactful pieces. So he was very clearly influenced by Titian. And then in 1592, at the age of 20, Caravaggio had a bit of an incident. And this is it's not well documented, because again, a lot of stuff about Caravaggio is not super well documented, but it's documented enough that we get kind of a taste of what Caravaggio's life is going to be like. So again, Caravaggio was already known for being a man with a hot temper, and he was very good with a sword. He was a very good duelist. And there's very little written, but in legal documents and other bills of sale we can piece together, that for some reason he had a scuffle with a police officer. And it wasn't just a little scuffle. The police officer was injured, and in some reports so injured that he died. And this was in a fight one-on-one with Caravaggio. And so directly after this fight, Caravaggio sold the only inheritance he had, which was a small piece of land, and he leaves Milan and never comes back. So he essentially is starting out his main career on the run from murder. And that is where we will end for the day.
With your hero a murderer?
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
I mean, he might have just wounded him really badly, but either way, he was running from the law. My emo boy.
It's powerful.
Bum, bum, bum.
Well, very good.
Yeah. So next time we'll cover the rest of his life and his death and hopefully find out where his bones are, because I know that's what Josh wants to know.
Yeah. Well, when are we doing this National Treasure style heist of his bones?
Of his bones. And tune in next time for the captivating end of our Caravaggio trilogy.
The thrilling conclusion. In a surprising doubleheader of an episode, 6 hours long, of nothing but Caravaggio trivia. For example, did you know there's 2 G's in his name?
Wow.
Good job.
That's some hard-hitting More of that next week. This is the stupidest
All right.
thing. All right.
Thank you for stopping by. And as always, go do some art. Don't do any crime.
Unless you're Caravaggio, in which case, first do the crimes, and
Mix
then
it up.
do some art.
Do art and crime simultaneously.
Yes.
That's what he did.
Go do some art and crime. Do some crimes.
Bye.
Bye.
Do the times.
Look at the beds.
Playing with me? I'm a man with a bed in his living room. You ever seen another man like that? No. I'm the only one that can afford it.
That's how well off I am.
I'm the true Renaissance man. A man with a bed in his living room.